Hi. So I'm doing a further homeschooling video diary update. Those who've seen the previous ones might remember this has been ongoing from January this year. Those who are new, hi. Thank you for being here. I was going to start recording this a few minutes ago and then had to go out and retrieve my dog. It has been a few months since I've done one of these updates. Life stuff happens, and that was life stuff that happened before I was going to start recording this. My daughter has not been shutting doors and gates after her, and a couple of months ago our dog went out after her to find her after she'd gone out to play, and I just assumed she was in the garden, and she wasn't. She'd gone toppling off up the street to find her, and luckily somebody picked her up and put it on local Facebook group for where we live, and we were fortunate enough to get her back. So daughter's gone out to play today. Same thing happened. I'm up here, heard her barking, went to go and check, and yes, she'd left the back door open, the gates open, and she'd gone up the street to see some kids on the corner. So luckily I got there in time and got her back, and I've went and spoken to my daughter again. So obviously this is going to have to be done differently somehow, and we'll figure it out. And that's how life stuff happens, isn't it? It's what we do with it when it does happen, which I don't know. I don't have the answer for that at this current moment in time, but I'm sure it will come. So it's the ongoing process of trying to figure out the life stuff. When you are parenting and working and looking after your furry family members. So sometimes I talk myself out of doing these videos when there's stuff happening and I think I'm not in the right place to focus and know what to talk about. Sometimes that's true, and sometimes it's fear talking. So although right now I feel a little bit a little bit out of kilter, and there's been other things happening today with trying to sort out the school thing. I've been sending emails, and I'm feeling quite frustrated because I feel like I haven't got a straight answer. I feel like I've been fobbed off, and the last email got very wordy, lots of kind of terminology that was local council terminology, probably national council terminology, and I can't help but think I'm being completely fobbed off again. Maybe that's mindset talking. I don't know. I've forwarded the email on to Sendias for support, for them to translate it into language I can understand. Sorry, lost train of thought. Went into, am I actually intelligent or not, or is it are they genuinely just using terminology to throw me? And I think it's the second one. And intelligence should have nothing whatsoever to do with it, and that therein lies the whole thing, doesn't it, about whether you get an education or not, and the whole conditioning we have that we must have an education to get anywhere in life. But this is the discovery of this process, is that education can mean different things. We need life education, and we need to know how to speak up for what we need and know what we need and understand what's important in life for us actually to be a well-rounded person. That's a terminology I need to explore, I think. So the update being that we found a school which I had not heard of and was actually informed of by the council after they'd sent out the new EHCP, which I still haven't received a copy of and have asked for again today. And a school responded to the new HCP and offered a place, and it's not local, but they have their own transport, and it sounds very much ideal for my daughter. She has been to see it and she felt very relaxed and wants to go, which is the almightiest, biggest yay, that's what we need. But because it is an alternative provision, although they can offer her a long-term place, and they are looking to move to full school next year, it has to go back to another meeting at the council for them to agree to the funding, which is a completely frustrating and unnecessary process, because my head simplifies it. If the council sent out the information and I have expressed my daughter's needs in the document, and the school says they have a place and can meet her needs, the simplified version of this in my brain says, why do they need a meeting to say she can actually go and receive the funding to go to this placement? Some people might consider this me being naive, but to me that's very black and white, simple, easy. The box is ticked, we found the school, put the funding there so that she can go. So I thought, well, okay, if it has to wait for a meeting for her to be able to go, rather than her having to wait, because they said they could take it instantly, but obviously they need to know the funding's there, so they couldn't come out and do the assessment at home for her to be able to start, because they need to know the funding is done. So again, in my head, simplified version of this is the school that she's registered with, that's been receiving funding since January, which again in my head should not have been used because she hasn't been in school. Release that funding to the new provision temporarily while they're waiting for it to be all crossed and red taped off through the local authority council. Just release the funding that's already been there for her. The school that she's registered with will not release the funding. They have not told me this. This has come from the council. Since having found the school and me contacting the school that she's registered with to say, we've found a school that she likes, please get in touch with me so we can sort this out. They have not answered any of my calls. They've been in meetings. The council then told me the decision, and this is weeks ago, and I have received no further contact from the school that my daughter's registered with, apart from, can we arrange safe and well meetings? And that was before last summer break in June. Since the summer break, she's had one or two safe and well meetings and no more. And I've received no contact about the school situation from them. And nothing else from the council after telling me about the decision, and me again requesting the new HCP and saying, can I get a date of when this is all going to go to the panel meeting? So I've emailed them again today and still haven't received a satisfactory response. So feeling very frustrated, and I didn't chase anything further up after being told about the decision that the school wouldn't release the funding. I completely stepped back from trying to get anything arranged because I felt completely defeated. My mindset went to, what's the point? It's not going to make any difference. I felt like I needed a break from the stress of thinking about it every day and trying to get something sorted and wondering when it was going to happen, and the just complete disappointment and frustration of the whole situation. So I completely stepped back and left it and focused on other things and reflected on the situation and what it might mean if my daughter did start now rather than in September. And in some ways there are positives of her not starting now, because obviously it would be the huge change and it might impact her anxiety levels and other things that go along with that, such as the eating. So in some ways it might be a good thing, but in other ways she was looking forward to going. She's been disappointed and let down again. In the back of my mind, I'm now thinking, what if they don't agree to her having a place there? Because another school has been mentioned in another area, and I'm thinking, is that one cheaper? Is that why they've brought that up, even though I've already said we've found this one and like it? So yeah, there was kind of a lot going on in my head, and I needed to take a break from it and focus on other things. And while all that's been going on, I've looked at the thoughts that were coming up and the behaviour patterns, and I've also seen some changes in my daughter, in herself, really positive changes. What I recognised from the thoughts coming up was, well, I can't make a difference, I won't be taken seriously. That was the kind of repetition that I was hearing, that I've heard so many times before. I won't be taken seriously, I can't make a difference, I'm not important enough to do anything about this. And I know that it stems from childhood experiences, from not feeling important, times when I felt humiliated and ashamed of who I was. When we're not aware of subconscious memories and beliefs that are guiding our choices, we can hold ourselves back in so many ways. And I became aware of that's what was going on with the situation in trying to get answers. And those kind of thought patterns, that conditioning, doesn't just impact my decisions as a parent, but also my choices in running my business, my choices in friendships and relationships. And it can leave kind of this heaviness and these layers that stop me from moving forward, from making choices that might actually, even though they feel like a risk, might actually make really positive changes in my life. And we all have these patterns and thoughts that impact every day, coming from our subconscious, that we're not aware of how they drive us. And it's particularly challenging for me in the profession that I've chosen, because the experiences I've had, I've taken huge steps to try and change my mindset and become a more improved version of myself. And I kind of got to a point where I thought that I'd done that, and it is always a work in progress. And I am a very different version of myself than who I used to be. And in doing all of this, I then wanted to pass it forward, as the saying goes. I've chosen to live a life trying to help other people, to improve my life, to be a mum that my daughter feels safe with and looks up to. And for the most part, I feel like I'm achieving that. There are days when it maybe falls a little bit under the bar that I've set. I wrote some notes so that I would stay more focused today, in hope that I don't go off on a tangent. I'm not promising anything. This weekend there's been quite a lot of reflecting on emotions. There's been some tears. There's been lots of talking to myself and reassuring myself and picking myself up, dusting myself off. And lots of looking in the mirror whilst talking to myself. so that I can hear myself and see the way I talk to myself when I'm picking myself up and dusting myself off. Because I kind of I didn't feel like I was bridging the gap between who I'm saying I am and who I'm wanting to be, and maybe how I really felt inside. So I wanted to actually look in the mirror and hear out loud and see my own reaction to when I'm trying to inspire. And I do want to be able to look myself in the eye and accept who's looking back at me. And so it's been quite challenging at times this weekend to have conversations with myself actually in the mirror and believe and hear and react to what I was saying to myself. Belief was quite a big part. And then when I kind of started taking steps back through experiences that I've had, I was like, how can I not believe what I'm achieving? And no, it's not an easy thing to do because it's working against old conditioning. But I want the same for my daughter, so I have to keep doing this. I have to keep doing this work and moving through these layers and understanding myself and figuring out what to do next, even when I feel like I haven't got any answers. Because I want the same for my daughter. I want her to be able to look in the mirror and be comfortable with who she is and what she sees. And it's also about the inner reflection, not just what we see on the surface, not just this physical, what does my hair look like, what's my face doing, what's my skin doing. It's more than that. It has to be so much more than the way we look. It's the reflection of the depth of in here, of how we're nurturing what's inside of us, not just layering the academic mind, but placing foundations so that when obstacles do present in life, when we have to retrieve the dog, when your child's forgotten something you've tried to implant several times, when life isn't going the way I want it to with school and with people responding to emails that I felt were very assertive. When those obstacles present, we need to know that we can dig deep enough to find our way past them. I need to know that for me, and I need for my daughter to know that I'm doing it, and also that she can do it for herself. While I'm parenting my child, I'm trying not to place my burdens on her. I'm trying not to let her see my self-doubt. But at the same time, she needs to know that it's there, so that that's human and we all have that, but it's finding how to work with it when it's there. Trying to walk through my life showing my daughter how to be compassionate but not be walked over. How to have good boundaries but know how to be supportive. How to nurture our empathy without it being at our expense. How to be assertive and strong and vulnerable enough to show others how to be open and connect. It's a really delicate dance through life, and we're all constantly learning the steps because the choreography changes so frequently. And in the past few months, I've continued to learn more about myself while I've watched my daughter growing into the person she's becoming. As a young person, she's not really a child anymore. She's certainly not a young child. And it's kind of still the in-between phase, but more and more I'm seeing her become a young person. Though she still has her moments of needing needing reminders to shut the gates. She is increasingly becoming more her own person, her own sense of style, her own choices. She is needing me much less. So in the past few months, I've had this space to look at myself more, re-find myself, question why I find certain situations with my daughter so hard. And it's kind of given me space to ask for help, to make new connections personally and professionally. This has developed as a result of me stepping back from trying to be there so much for my daughter. It's developed from my changing role as a parent and feeling more lost as me, just me, not mum me and not work me, but just me. I haven't been feeling needed, so I've revisited that, how that impacts me when I don't feel needed in a work role and in mum role. I've started to make choices just for me to enhance all of my life, which wasn't an easy thing to do. There's the whole guilt stuff, there's the whole, do I deserve this? Am I allowed this? What do I want? What am I supposed to do with my time? It feels like a waste of space. I feel like I'm being lazy. Again, lots of conditioned things from childhood. My mum didn't work. My mum spent a lot of time at home, but not necessarily with me. We could be in the same room, but she wasn't with me. She was lost in her thoughts and in her depression, and it feels very strange and very much a reminder of what I told myself I didn't want to do, have done when I did have depression. And it feels like I'm doing that again, but I'm not. It's a different way of being. I'm doing things that my mum never did because I'm exploring me, and in doing that it helps me find ways to help other people, but it's the process that I have to go through first, which again will help my daughter learn how to find who she is. And it has been like a ripple effect. My daughter has made changes in her own life. She's asserted herself. She didn't want as much time with me. She hasn't wanted to go on trips with me when it's been genuine no school time, when it's been school holidays. She hasn't really done anything with me, and it's been a really difficult one to swallow. But it got me to then choose different life situations for me. It meant spending less time with her, and from both of us making choices that could appear on the outside as selfish and not making sense to other people. It might mean that we're judged by others. My daughter not choosing to go to school, it's not really a choice. She burnt out, she physically couldn't, but not everybody may see it that way. And I've made choices to go to courses and do things for me, which means being away from my daughter. But those choices have very quickly helped both of us grow and be more independent and confident and have more purpose, both of us. And even though there hasn't been any academic education done at home, no curriculum is being followed currently, and we've come to understand that my daughter doesn't want to see me as a teacher. She doesn't want me in that role because she no longer likes teachers, and that's sad. from the child she was at junior school. She loved going to school. Her teachers were so important to her. They were role models. They taught her more than academic education, and to have lost that throughout year 7 and not at all in year 8, it's just so sad. It's such a loss for her. So that's part of her reasoning behind me not wanting to teach her academically. But even though that's not happening, and we don't have a confirmed start date for the new school, and even though it has been such a frustrating, disappointing process, and I don't have all the answers, I don't fully understand why this situation is happening or how it's happened, because I haven't been told, and I can't see all of the pictures yet. I can't see the wood for the trees. I have learned how many other children are in a similar situation, not attending school, both neurodiverse and neurotypical, or how many children are attending but massively anxious. And I question how much they are gaining from going to school when they're feeling that anxious. I know my daughter didn't learn anything when she was going in that frame of mind. You can't fully take on anything. You can't fully process when your anxiety is up there. So it needs to be a complete overhaul of the system. And I will keep saying this. And I'm sure other parents will keep saying it. But during this process, I've learned how important communities are. Being in contact with other parents and getting support through talking things through and learning more about ourselves through this process. I've learned to listen to my daughter, to give her space, to really listen to her, to what she needs, to how she's feeling, to what she's been thinking. Instead of trying to get what I thought was important, or trying to get her back into school, or trying to get her to do schoolwork, I've learned to respect her as her own person, and not just an aspect of me, not just an extension of me that has to do what I say, do what I tell her to do. I've learned to trust her, to figure out her own methods and solutions. Her own methods and solutions. Well, that was tricky for me to say. Maybe I'm not fully there on that. Maybe that's about me stepping out of my ego, or maybe that's the reminders of when she leaves gates open and my head's like, how can she problem solve when she can't remember to shut a gate? And that's not an easy thing for me to... But she is so wise in so many ways, and I have to respect that and let her flourish in those ways. And she doesn't have to explain everything to me. I have this need to explain myself in everything that I do, almost to justify my existence, to prove that I can back myself up with so many words and explanations of why I do things and what's inside of me. So in some ways I expect that from my daughter. She doesn't feel that same need that I do to prove her existence or prove her reasons. I hope that she doesn't feel that same need anyway. And none of us should have to fight to prove our existence and fight to prove that we're important. None of us should have to fight any system so hard to prove that we deserve to exist and deserve to be heard and seen. None of us should have to fight to change who we are to fit any system. Unfortunately for some of us, that feels like a fact of life, that we have to fight. It feels impossible to change the system and to change the fact that we have to fight for things. That certainly feels like where my mindset has been. And maybe rather than trying to change the system, maybe it's about changing the way that we look at life to gain a different perspective. For me personally, my perspective on me has and still needs to change. It's about believing in the power and ability I already have, in seeing how far I've already come, the power that I've already used to not give up, remembering how far I've had to dig to be able to look in the mirror and see something different, to see beneath the surface, to know that I can change my script, then change the story, which changes the dance steps. It may not be curriculum led, but there is definitely education taking place. And maybe that will change other education for other people in educating themselves. Maybe it will change the education system in some way, or some systems. So, this video is here for educational purposes. It's here for support, for sharing, to help others feel not so batshit crazy, not so alone. So reach out if you need to me or to someone else. Write some things down, talk some things through. Talk to yourself in the mirror if you feel the need. Please like and subscribe and say hi. Find me on Facebook and Instagram. My dog may be about to start barking because she hid under the dog. And we'll keep doing the life stuff, and I will speak to you again soon. Okay. Lots of love. Goodbye. Take care. Stay in the light. Stay out of the dark.